All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to Cloud Talk on this October 15th. I'm excited to be here. My name is Brian Fanzo, better known as iSocialFans on the Twitters. As always, joined to you every single Thursday at noon Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific, whatever other time zone you're in, you probably figure it out. We've been doing this Twitter chat. Used to be a Google Hangout, so it's a Twitter chat, Google Hangout now for almost a year. It's been a lot of fun. And we're excited. We moved over to Blab about 2 months ago. And about 3 months ago, we picked up an awesome sponsor who really understands the power of community, the power of conversation, and really not telling us what to talk about, but really guiding us and supporting the community. So a big shout out and love to SAP. SAP is the one that's sponsoring this show, allows us to do it every single week. I'm usually joined by my co-host, Daniel Newman, but Daniel Newman right now is gracing the stage somewhere doing a keynote, which I know how that goes. We kind of both have crazy schedules, but I was excited. The conversation today is about social collaboration without technology boundaries, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about. And as soon as I realized that Daniel couldn't be there with me, I reached out to one of my friends, my buddy Ian, who I met through IBM, through collaborating with the team over at IBM. And I said, all right, Ian, can you jump on the show? Ian was kind enough to even move some meetings around for me. So Ian, welcome to Cloud Talk. For those people that don't know you as well as I do, give people a little bit about your background, and then we'll jump into question one on the show and let everybody see what's going on.
Well, glad to be here. Basically, I've worked with technology my entire career. And do you hear that echo too?
No echo on my side.
Okay. Basically, I've always focused on connecting the dots between people, processes, and technology with a big focus on marketing. And as we all know today, we're not in a broadcast, funny enough for this, not in a broadcast mechanism of marketing. It's not about marketing to, it's marketing with. And so that's been my focus. I've done it with, like you mentioned, IBM, other large companies like Computer Associates, worked with the founders of 1-800-Flowers, and I've worked with many startups. So I've gone from all sides of the spectrum, and the common denominator is people.
Love it. I love it. And that's a good segue into the show and into what we're talking about here today. So for everybody that's joining, if it's your first time joining, we use the hashtag Cloud Talk on Twitter. It's the glue for the conversation that is the Twitter chat that goes on. So we understand if you don't want to look at our pretty faces and you want to open up a second tab on Twitter or go to TweetChat or Nerf or one of those other clients or set up TweetDeck, which is what I use, and put the hashtag in there and really listen to the hashtag and follow along on that as well. You could just listen. If you don't want to do that and you just want to engage in Blab, we're very lucky. Our sponsor cares about the conversation much more so than the vanity metrics. So we get engagement inside of here. We get engagement on side of Twitter. Both of them are very good for us. If you see right here, I think it's the screen's flipped. So if you see right here, it says tell a little bird. If you guys could hit tell a little bird, it'll post us out the Twitter, bring some more audience in for our show today. I'll actually change the topic each time we change the question so you guys know what's going on, where the conversation's shifting. Last 20 minutes or so of the show, we're going to open up those bottom two seats. Love to have you come in, ask questions, concerns, tell us we're full of crap. Whatever you think you want to share with us, we are game. So I'm going to change the topic to the first question, and I'm going to throw it out there. I know Kristen, shout out to Kristen again. She's manning the Twitters for us, and she will post a question out there on Twitter. I'll bring questions and comments on Twitter. But the first question, and really it's about, how we kind of move things along and how brands are thinking about not only cloud technology, but collaboration. So this question really says, what causes a firm to consider cloud solutions for collaboration? So Ian, I would love to hear your insights on that.
Well, it's interesting. Technology has been part of the equation for a very long time. The problem is we've gone from this theory of being inside these walls to extending beyond them scalably and extensively. And when you do that, you really need more than the infrastructure of your in-house data center, for financial services, for privacy-related concerns with HIPAA around healthcare. You sure need certain walls around things. But today, it's really about accessibility and connecting with people. And for that, you really need the cloud.
No, you do. And I love it. And I think, part of the conversation for me, I went from an enterprise cybersecurity background is where I spent 9 years of my life. And then I went to a data center company that moved into a cloud startup. And it was a very interesting world because we used to deal in real estate. Everyone asked us how many square footage you had. When we went to a company, although the CIO would be the one that would be telling the company that they need more data center, they would actually have to make it a real estate play because it was a real estate asset. It was actually depreciating asset. And we always talked about square footage. And really, for the longest time, my big bragging point was I worked for a company that had 1.5 million square footage of data center space in the United States. But the question came back to our businesses and said, what the hell does that mean for me? Does that square footage equal faster compute? Does it equal more elasticity for my customers? Does it, and so really what I think the interesting thing for me when we're talking collaboration, the key to collaboration really comes down to productivity, ease of use, communication, and the ability to be nimble and have access to what you want, where you want, when you want it. And data center never really allowed that. The reason that I worked for a data center company and we had 3 data centers, it's simple to understand. We had one in New Jersey, one in Phoenix, and one in Denver. And it was because you needed to be in proximity of your customers so that you could be, allow things to go on. The cloud allows for shifting of data loads, and really you can stick something in Amazon or stick it in IBM or SAP or Rackspace or all of these cloud-based solutions. And it doesn't matter where you're accessing it from because it'll shift all of that for you. And the crazy part about that is it allows technology people to handle the technology and the people to focus on the collaboration, which I think is why collaboration has taken off so successfully recently.
Absolutely. And the thing is, too, let's, make sure we don't do any kind of generalization. There are all types of companies, all sizes, all focuses, all different types of customers. So cloud for some is all they need. For others, on-site premises do matter, so you need a hybrid solution. So you really have to understand what are our objectives and who are we trying to serve, and that's what should designate what that solution should be.
Yeah, so I love on Twitter, so samepage.io, who's actually jumped in a bunch of our cloud talks recently, and I love how their insights, and they were actually promoting us the show earlier, so a shout out to samepage.io. They said their answer was the reasons for collaboration tools vary from organization to organizations. Teams need to know why they need to collaborate first. If that's not the truth, especially, they don't even know why they went to the cloud. All of a sudden, the cloud became like the sexy thing to do. And then you said, well, why'd you move to the cloud? And you're like, I have no idea. And to me, the cloud, mobility, and collaboration are all the same thing because people move to the cloud and they say they move to the cloud. People make a mobile-friendly app and it's mobile, or they say they want to collaborate. But really, are they taking advantages of all of those pieces? Which means cloud, are you allowing for rollover backup so that if all of a sudden you have an unexpected load, you can be really elastic? If you're using a mobile device, does that mean that you're actually taking advantage of location-based services, the camera that's on the device? If you're going to collaboration, are you ultimately wanting to collaborate? Or are you just putting more tools in the way so that collaboration not only becomes more difficult, but that you can just check a checkbox? Because I think collaboration is that sexy term. We keep silos up. We don't let our departments talk to each other, but yet the CEO gets on stand and says, I want you to collaborate. And that to me is definitely and you both, Ian, you and I both know, we've talked about this before, social business as a whole. I think the largest struggle is it's top down told that we want collaboration to happen, but we're not enabling it and allowing and trusting. And to your point, trusting our people to actually communicate and collaborate the correct way.
Well, it's funny because collaboration, you're right, is that sexy, mean nothing word a lot of times. And what you need to really focus on is that technology for many years has actually created more hurdles and obstacles than it solved. We're finally getting to the point where it can take down those hurdles, but you have to do it by empowering people with the technology, not making them change all of their behaviors and actions to fit some other kind of technology.
Yeah, and shout out to our awesome. I couldn't agree more on that. And I think Kristen Cardo said, brought up on Twitter right now. She said affordability and ease of use, right? And that's something. So let's think about that. For those of you that don't, cloud is definitely not brand new. but I remember when cloud was coming out, and the only thing, really we can blame like Apple and Box and Dropbox for all of a sudden really bringing it to the forefront. But I studied cloud computing in 2003 when I was graduating college. So in 2003, we were talking about cloud clustering, and I was a computer science major, so I really focused on that. But the thing about it before was you had to buy servers, you had to understand backup, and you worked for a startup very recently, Ian. I mean, I was speaking at Denver Startup Week in 2007. And it was one of my favorite things. I walked in this really innovative security startup, and they go, "Hey, we got to show you something." And they opened up their closet, and in their closet was literally like the old rack you buy at Home Depot, and it had 4 servers on each, in their closet. And they were like, "This is our data center," and they had a UPS down low, and that was how you managed your IT. And I asked everyone that was in there, I said, "Are all of you guys server maintenance guys? Are you UPS guys? Are you power on guys?" And they're like laughing. They're like, "No." But, that's the thinking. And we went from there to where we controlled everything to we moved it into a data center where we gave up a little bit of control, but we wanted to still touch it, feel it. We didn't, we said, hey, one of our biggest things at IO when I worked there was always like, we are one of those people that are hands off. We make sure the power's on, the cooling is on, and that you don't go offline, but we don't update your servers. We don't log in. We stay out of the rack. And to me, that was crazy because we knew more about that tech than they did, but they were too scared to give up that control, that responsibility. Ultimately, to move to the cloud, you're now giving up more responsibility, more control, because now more of the stack is living somewhere that you can't touch. But let's be real. I trust SAP. I trust Amazon to maintain and keep my equipment up a hell of a lot more than even I do. And I worked in a data center for 2.5 years, and I know what it takes. So I think it's funny because people are like, wait a second, we know cloud computing is not new. No, it's not. But to actually understand what it takes to get there, what the advantages are. And then I thought Kristen brought up the idea of affordability. Affordability is a really good one because unlike before, you had to buy a server and you had to predict, okay, I think we're going to have this much traffic for Black Friday. I need 30 servers. Well, in the cloud, you set up your subscription-based model that allows you to have access to all of this compute, but you don't actually cost it and spend it until you actually need it. I mean, it's a light bulb that goes off, right? It's like one of those things to me that really, to allow collaboration to happen, collaboration in technology and business needs to allow technology people to focus on technology and business people to focus on business.
Well, I could still remember the heydays of 1-800-Flowers, during the holidays. And this was back in the late 1999, I believe. And getting ready for one of the holidays and needing to be prepared with load balancing and what happens and do we need to get 10 more racks of servers? And that was the mentality even to the late 90s, early 2000, where today it's just make sure we scale when we need to and cut back when we don't need it.
No, I couldn't agree more. So I'm gonna throw out question number 2 because I see the audience and I see, I'm seeing some great replies in here as well. For me, I think a lot of the conversation really says, what is cloud actually going to do for you? Is it going to increase productivity? Yes. And they should ask, I think every company should ask that about every technology, right? The reason I went from a technology evangelist to a change evangelist was too many people said, okay, we just need this technology, but it didn't make them more productive. It didn't add any features to their business. And ultimately, it added steps, process, and procedure. And why would you embrace technology? Why would you move to the cloud? Why would you even want to set up collaboration tools if you don't understand what advantages or productivity or business cases that actually solves for you? So question number 2 is, how can companies use cloud to establish global collaborative communities? And I think this is a really fun one because I think we're talking about a little bit on that question 1 on what firms need to think about, but really, what does cloud enable globally, maybe that on-prem, the old way of thinking, didn't allow us to do previously?
Well, it's that true sense of scalability. How do you reach people that aren't sitting in that building or in your group of buildings? Today, it's all about connecting people, and technology is how we do that. But it's also about community-led technology that reinforces people to say, you know what? I know these people great. I can communicate with them. I can collaborate. But how do I go past that? And that's the big thing today. That's why underneath this shirt, we need We need collaboration superheroes. Those are the change agents. Those are the people that say, it's how do I become an evangelist to help people do more with technology, to really connect with more people, and to do better things. 1 + 1 should always equal more than 2. If it doesn't, we're not doing the right things.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I'm seeing some of the conversation going on here on Twitter as well. And for me, one of the things that we're talking about, what is this? Magtrix. Very cool. A new joiner of Cloud Talk. I haven't seen them on the show before. They said solutions such as self-service portals allows community to connect anywhere on any device. And let's look at Buffer. So if you guys aren't familiar with Buffer, but Buffer is a social media tool, a company. And I always make this caveat because some people just assume that a social media company born in the years of cloud is good at cloud computing, is good at social and good at collaboration. Right. And I will caveat and say that it's actually the opposite. A majority of social media companies actually suck at being social and collaborative and taking advantage. So let's put that in perspective. But I read a blog yesterday by Buffer, or 2 days ago by Buffer, that said, hey, why we have no office, no headquarters, no office in Buffer. And Buffer does, I'm really huge fan of them. I follow Leo and their team since day one, and they travel around the world. Their CEO, all he needs is an internet connection and his laptop, and he believes he is working and doing his job. But what it has allowed Buffer to do, which I think changes the game, and the reason that Buffer is doing great things, is they can hire the best talent with no limitations, no boundaries. If you live in Australia and you are the best talented person for my company, you fit the culture, not only am I going to hire you there, but what Buffer has done is they said, we're going to hire you, we're going to let you work remote, we're going to let you take advantage of all this cloud computing advantages, but we're also going to do offline retreats so that we're going to bring you together as a team and collaborate. And the key here is just because someone works from home or you're a global company that is disconnected does not mean offline collaboration isn't important. So for me, how does companies set this up? Companies now can really reach and hire talent that they never before thought was on their radar because they would have to relocate them to San Francisco or the cost of living, and they'd have to pay them twice as much. And now you can actually increase the user's quality of life, or your customer or your employee's quality of life, hire the best talent, and then you can also drive that global collaboration back into a one central location and collaborate offline. I think that is something that is farly too underestimated. I think we think of cloud and collaboration, and we always forget cloud enables offline collaboration just as much as it does online.
Well, it's funny because with some exceptions, I've probably worked remotely for about 15 years now. And the interesting thing about this, you brought up, I love Buffer. Joel is great. I love Kevin. He does a lot of the content marketing and some of the great blog posts. And what you just said about, okay, someone in Australia, my brother lives in Australia, so I understand the global nature on a personal and professional level. But one of the things that you just triggered is the fact that if we don't limit ourselves to talent in a radius around us, and we are truly global, then you get the best talent. But the other very important thing is that when you have talent dispersed across the world, that talent then builds a circle of influence for your company there with them. So you truly have a global nature of a business. And that is a great way to drive community involvement.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think not only does that drive community, but it allows people to really embrace what they're doing and how they're doing it. I want to give a shout out here. There's a couple of people that really, Avi said, it's about the data. It doesn't matter what platform, device, program, version. None of that really matters. It's about availability, security, speed, ease of use. And I think that's a really, key. And I think, one of the things that I was really interested, I was reading one of the SAP white papers that they kind of set my way when we were talking about this topic. And, hearing about how companies are afraid of change, yet they've embraced cloud. They've already invested in a lot of things that really allow them to change, right? And I think that's something that is farly underestimated. So for me, I think the kind of wrap a bow around this question from my perspective is the global collaboration. I firmly believe the future of innovation is actually collaboration, because I don't believe anymore you can be the Apples, and there's a few exceptions, but there's no more about I can only work and collaborate with my company, my employees, or even my partners, because now we can collaborate, share insights and knowledge worldwide. I was on a panel, or I was moderating a panel in San Jose last week at C2SV, and it was Internet of Things panel. And we were talking about open source and the idea that we need to share all this data. And this guy was talking about his $1 million invention for Internet of Things operating system all happened because of someone in Tokyo that was actually online, and they collaborated. And the guy on Tokyo explained what he was creating for a car, this new future-age car. And they collaborated and actually took that technology, implemented it in Internet of Things. And to me, that was innovation, because it didn't have to be the guy working in San Francisco and the guy working in Tokyo. It's now, hey, I don't care where you live or what you're doing. We're gonna connect. And if it wasn't for time zones, it would probably be even more powerful.
Well, it's funny, our devices are basically our cars. And what we need to do is build the collaborative infrastructure and bridges to connect people. So that's what all this technology is. And the focus of being able, Red Hat is headquartered here in Raleigh. So they're, of course, big proponents of open source. I'm going to be speaking out in November about the LA Auto Show for the fuel cell technology event. And what they're doing is talking about how these organizations using fuel cell technology can open source that. And what do? You give the experienced long-term person the ability to use this, but then you inspire the younger, the kids in school saying, oh, I should be able to do this. You know what happened on that movie, The Martian? I'm going to create something that does that. And it's possible today.
And how cool is that? I think now this also is part of the reason why the startup is so empowered, because the startup before didn't have the resources or the connections or the network to actually take advantage of global talent. And, they couldn't relocate people, and they had to hire someone in their local region. And I was in Raleigh for the Triangle AMA marketing conference when I was speaking about live streaming. And I was talking to some of those people there, and I was laughing because I said, I spoke at OpenStack for Red Hat years ago when OpenStack was kicking off. And it was funny because Red Hat, when I knew they were in Raleigh and I was, went to high school in Virginia Beach, I'm like, man, I wish I could move back to Raleigh and work for Red Hat. And that was kind of like one of those early days of cloud computing. Now it doesn't really matter where those kind of fall in there. So I love some of the conversation that's going on the side about community involvement and the idea that, it's really about sharing knowledge and how things work together. So I want to throw up, I threw up the wrong link here. I want to throw out question number 3 now. And really question number 3 is, what are the challenges to engaging communities after a major change has been implemented? Because we both just talked about it. I don't care who you are and what phase of cloud change you're in today. It's a drastic change. It's a change in how you update your software, how you onboard a new employee, how you think about changing from one piece of software to the next. So I think for me, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. What are some of those challenges that not only brands are having, but what are these challenges that these companies are having because of this change?
Well, everything is about people. I know we want to talk about processes and technology because that's the bottom points of how you make things happen, but it all leads to people. And what that means is that it's important to understand the psychology of people. People don't like change. Change that early adopters do is basically because they enjoy it and they're the ones that propel it forward, like Dropbox. But the average person likes, to go slow and steady, not change up too much, have a consistent thing that they know what to expect. That's fine. But what needs to happen is internally in organizations, you need evangelists and people that really understand this and start to build a culture internally. Because until you build that internally, you can't extend that externally because it doesn't work. You've fragmented and disconnected.
No, I couldn't agree more, and that's a great point. And I love Ursula said it really easily right here. It said, people don't like change, but change is inevitable. And that's why I joke, that's why they need to hire me, right? So I think part of what I love to do is, if you force change, and I talk about this in live streaming, and live streaming is a great example, and just the idea, if I tell your brand, you have to be on live stream, the first thing you say is, I don't have the time, that's stupid, it's not for me, my marketing team doesn't care, it's because I'm forcing you. But if you focus on the how and the why, and you start talking about what experiences it enables, the change all of a sudden becomes something that is actually beneficial and not forced upon them, right? And for cloud computing was fun for me. I worked with Bank of America, and Bank of America just was a client of ours at IO, and I was lucky. I was actually personal brand coaching an executive there, and then we connected with them, and we got them. They were a customer, and one of the things for Bank of America was when they were moving into this new cloud model, which was an on-prem cloud model. It was really this hybrid solution. I talked to him for like a half hour, and he paused and he said, "I'm sold, Brian. I am buying." And I looked at him. I was like, "I haven't even got to the technical part." And he's like, "You're the first person that actually explained cloud about what my business advantages are and the experiences I will receive without just talking about, well, now you're not going to have to buy servers and your depreciation and your UPS." And he was like, "Holy crap, you started at the idea of what my business gains by me embracing this change." I think that is one of the keys. I think we often look at this change and it's forced. Ursula has a good point. I mean, we can't, if you don't embrace change, especially technology change, at the rate we're changing right now, not only you'll be run over, you won't even see the bus hit you. You'll be run over and over top. But I know, and I think it's interesting. What are your thoughts on not only change agents? Because I still think a change agent, unfortunately, it gets one big win and then gets siloed and forced out. I've experienced that in 2 of my companies. I actually had an hour or a half hour conversation with Robert Scoble about that last week, and it was like, Robert, how do we get change agents to not be, they do their job, everybody celebrates them and says, "Oh my God, our company's better because of that change agent." And then the next time that change agent tries to do something, they're like, "Uh-oh, he's doing it again. We better not," or "she's doing it again. Let's not do it." So what are your thoughts there on how that change agent has to be kind of re-looked at? Because I think that's part of this conversation.
Well, I think the big thing with that is the fact that there are change agents who do change just because they can, and that's their moniker. There are others who look at an organization and truly understand what are our goals and objectives, and what would changing A, B, and C do for us, and more importantly, our customers, and connecting those dots. Change for the sake of change is just like technology for the sake of technology.
Agreed.
It doesn't work.
And not to mention it doesn't work, but they're the ones making the bad name for change as a whole, right? And for me, I'm the FOMO. I'm the chase the shiny objects. I download everything. But I can promise you, out of all the things I download and I try out, I downloaded 2 apps last night that I was working on. There were 2 things. I talk about and I actually implement 12%. Because the rest of it, I realize that it has no advantage for me or my community or bringing that to the forefront. But when someone looks at it from the outside in, they're like, "Brian, we're not going to listen to you. You just want us to change everything you do." And I'm like, well, actually, I've tested out 13 replacements for Evernote, and all 13 of them have sucked. And I haven't told you about one of them, and I'm still a huge Evernote fan, right? And so I think part of this idea of change is kind of educating. And this is Geeky Lamb had said, Sarah had said, we have to also think about transparency. Transparency to me makes all of these things so much easier, because the reason silos exist, the reason that these employees feel that if they control something and they hold on to their knowledge that they'll be rewarded, is because there is no transparency, and you're not celebrating those that are transparent. So my big soapbox for this is always, let's find a way to embrace change, not only the change agent, but we have to celebrate what that success looks like, because after that success happens, if we don't celebrate it, the next change, nobody's going to see advantage of it. Like, why would I change? Like, we don't even know if you guys did anything good. I mean, I can tell you, I even went back to one of my clients today and I said, "I need more information for you." I was like, "I need to celebrate you publicly because you did an amazing job of embracing this, and your team might know, your company you might think they know, but I want to tell the world, because more people need to realize what you won." I mean, how many resumes came in because you embraced this change, and we need to celebrate that, because that's how we get people to look at change with an open mind.
Well, it's funny, you brought up a very good point. Change is often seen as a negative connotation, but you have to look at things through different glasses, different perspectives. You might not think of it this way, but your children getting older, that's a change. That's a good change. You having another anniversary with your spouse, that's a positive thing. You have a company and it grows revenues by X%, or the stock price goes up by this percent, that's a change too. Change always is going to be a roller coaster going up and down, and the whole thing is to ride it out so that the net positive comes about.
Couldn't agree more. And that's actually, exactly what my friend Crowded Head said. He said on Twitter, he said, change is the new norm for business. But he said, model the success of your implemented change, connect the dots, and add value. I'm a reverse engineer junkie. I love reverse engineering what works and what doesn't work to understand. But I saw my buddy here, my buddy Fred Aubin said, hey, he said, slow down, hold on. As a CEO, if you nominate change agents and change champions and CMOs, I actually don't even think you need to actually bucket that change person as a labeled stamp. I think ultimately, for me, one of the things that I failed at, and I talk about my successes, so I also want to talk about failures, is I got CEO buy-in to drive a enormous change in my company. We were, shifting the entire corporate model and culture. CEO bought off on it. CIO bought off on it. I went straight to the marketing team that got them the buy off on it. And I said, all right, I'm going to start and rally the troops. And I forgot an important factor. Management was not, I did not get management approval. And so what ended up failing is I got cloud technology implemented. I got the tools implemented, and management said, well, my bonus structure does not require me to have those those departments talk. I'm bonus on how much work that person does on the phone. Screw you and your CEO buy-in. I'm not buying into your collaboration model. And for me, as someone that was driving that change, it was the biggest lesson learned I ever felt, because it took me 6 months of loss, because I had to go back and start over with each one of these managers, work department by department, explain to them, work their architecture, how we would want to do it. Got all the departments set up, and then 6 months later, I got to kick it off. And talking about a mistake, so I see some people talking about that, couldn't underestimate the power of knowing who influences who. Knowing just because you got CEO or management buy-in probably isn't enough. You have to really rally the troops and get that snowball kind of moving downhill.
And it doesn't need to be this formal change agent program. What it needs to be is embedded for those who want to take advantage of it, and it should serve as a catalyst for discovery. Because if you have a catalyst for discovery, everybody collects data. We have all this data. It's terrific, great, but it overwhelms you unless you use it the right way in the real time, scenario. And it's not about the data. It's not even about the analysis. It's about the actionable insight that's derived that helps you to do more, to do better, and to create better results. And without that, you end up doing a lot of things that end up being inefficient, unproductive, and sidetrack you from what your core focus is.
So I see Stephen Caggiano put consumer-facing discovery there with a question mark. That's an interesting one. I love consumer-facing discovery. I love, I think it was on our Social Business Hour show. J.S. Gilbert got on and asked Rachel Miller and I, do you recommend companies leveraging Twitter to do competitive analysis against your competitors? And to me, it was like,
absolutely.
Not only do I recommend it, like I own that. I have more private Twitter lists. I have more tools to do social listening and social discovery of my competitors. I can tell you when every one of my competitors updates their Twitter profile. I can tell you when they follow somebody that is on one of my lists that's an influencer. And so I think this idea of collaboration and successful change also comes down to, we talked a little bit about some of those limitations and you're not getting buy-in. But what are some of the factors you think really lead to successful collaboration, especially in a cloud-enabled environment?
I think a big one is really creating an environment that people can test things out. Because too often, a solution is selected or created and said, here you go, this is going to make you all collaborate better. But the problem is, just like on Twitter, a lot of people don't listen and learn. If you don't understand the true pain points of the people you're trying to help collaborate better, then how can you present a solution? You're going to just present another thing that there'll be some ramp up, there'll be some use and adoption, then it will drop off completely, and then they'll go back to their old standbys, email, an occasional documents exchange or intranet. What we need is to truly understand, out of this group of people, how do they collaborate? How do they actually connect with each other and create solutions that propel those things forward, not just get them more annoyed about using something they still don't like, because it's not an innovation. It's one step beyond the last thing that didn't work.
Couldn't agree more. And I got to give a shout out to Ralph. Ralph said he posted the Socrates quote, and I actually have this quote on a poster framed that used to be in my office. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And
absolutely.
My only caveat to that is when someone looks at change, they can't look at change and only focus on educating the digital natives. You have to keep the digital dinosaurs in your pocket, and you have to simplify to the lowest common denominator. I think I agree completely on building the new, but we also have to educate along the way, because I think oftentimes we focus only on the new and we leave those people behind. And ultimately, if the lowest ring on the totem pole is what is still making us successful as a company, and if they're not, collaboration tools, like I posted a post on Facebook that turned into a crazy post. I said Facebook groups or Slack, right? And all of a sudden it turned into it was 140 comments in 3 hours on that post. And it was all about collaboration and why people like Facebook groups is for Slack. And for me, it's working with a client now and on what I'm trying to do for collaboration. But so much of it was change because people were like, well, I check Facebook regularly and Facebook exists and I like that it's in my news feed and I like that I get the notifications. And then the funny part was we all don't like email. I'm the biggest hater of email, but Slack does an amazing job of notifying you, allowing you to customize your notifications in your email or on your mobile device. But that wasn't good enough, right? The notifications weren't existing in your Facebook group. And to me, that was the change. It opened a light bulb for me, just that idea there of that collaboration, because I was creating a community house built for collaboration. And I had to focus on where the majority of people would find it the easiest to use and use it most often. For me, I love Slack. I would much rather it be on Slack. It gives me extra channels, all these extra features. But ultimately, my lesson learned is I've done it before. And I've tried to take a community and get people to collaborate and say, I know you're over here talking. I want you to come to me. And not only you get 3 of the early adopters and 2 of your friends and everybody else stays over here. Or they all jump over for a week and then they get burnt out and they come back over to where they're at. So I think something to me, and I know Kristen loves Slack as well. We've used Slack across our team. So I'm going to throw out the last one.
I know Stuart Butterfield at Slack. He's an amazing guy. He's not even happy with what he has yet. He said the best is yet to come. But the thing is, Slack is an amazing thing because it allows you to have all kinds of groups. Engineers can put code. It doesn't get, reformatted and screwed up. But the thing is, whatever community you create, you have to understand the community first. If you don't understand the community, you have a risky situation because I'm going to guess they want this or that. Well, let's learn about them and what they're more likely to use, and that will propel them to keep using it.
That's the truth. And not only, listening, right? And I saw Lisa Pattern, shout out to London Lisa, London lady. She said, community, customer, employee involvement, go all in, risk failure. And that is super important with this change and this innovation, because I think understanding your community requires you to listen, let them know they're heard, and be willing to understand that sometimes what you're listening for is not what you wanted to hear. And I think that's a scary factor, especially for collaboration. In my company, we grew from 256 employees to 614 when I was there in 2 years. We were averaging 12 new hires a week. And one of the things that was crazy is I couldn't get buy-in, and I got smart. And I said, well, screw the old people that are old in the sense that they've been in the company for a while, and said, I'm going to start with every new hire. Because guess what? It took me 4 months, and I now had half the company because half the company was new hires. And I focused on embracing them, and really to get my company to open up to change and failure, I had to get a groundswell. I had to get a community to really gain behind that and kind of make that happen. So I'm going to jump into our last question. I'm going to open up the seats. If people want to come in here, jump in, add their questions, comments, concerns, tell us that you believe that the future of innovation is siloed work, and we could have a great argument. But I think one of the things that was interesting for me is I got to sit there with Robert Scoble last week. We talked about virtual reality, augmented reality. I was on a very long phone call yesterday with the IBM team about AI and the future of AI and robotics. I'll be heading to IBM Insight at the end of this month, talking about data and really all this data plays. I'm going to go to a SAP event in the first week of November, talking about the future of cloud and how this really data shift needs to happen. The question comes down to, I'm excited about the future. I'm one of those ones that sign me up for a chip that teach me languages. I could have a chip implanted here. All of a sudden I can speak Italian. But ultimately, what does the future of collaboration look like thanks to these new technologies and these new devices? Because I think we should focus on what innovations are going to make collaboration easier, more productive, or more exciting.
Well, I think it all depends on the use you're aiming for. A lot of times we want to try to replicate successes instead of looking at the failures and learning from them so that the next thing we do better. So I think privacy is always going to be an issue, although people born many years ago versus now have a very different view of privacy. What we need to do now is determine what do people want to do and how do they want to do it, and what technologies are going to allow them to do that. The Internet of Things is here. It's growing. It's tremendous. I'm part of a regional group, so I deal with Verizon and Cisco and IBM and all those guys and a bunch of startups. The problem with it is that we say it haphazardly, like, here's the thing. We don't need to go into all the technology, but we need people to have a better understanding of what things like that truly mean for their experiences. And once they understand it, then it becomes a mainstream thing, not this lofty, one day this will happen.
No, I think that's a great way of putting it. I think, and also, we have a big data problem because we have a big problem that we don't ask the right questions. We don't know what we plan on doing, and we just throw that giant blanket out in the ocean, and we just say, here's all this data. And not only is it not in real time or of organized or trusted data, I mean, we can't even get data that's actually we can actually trust. I think actually one of the things for me that I'm super excited about is really how we start looking at data and devices to not be just singular, but ultimately, how can they be actionable and how can they almost work with us, not for us? Because I think right now we're still living in this device thing where it says, these are all my devices and this is what they do, and then I do this. And it's like, how do we work together? I think that is part of this exciting thing when we're talking about virtual reality and augmented reality. And they were talking about the idea that a doctor could put the glasses on before they're doing surgery, and they would see the exact printout of the person's body and inside, and they would know that if they press too hard here, what veins would be tricked. And to me, if we're able to for me, I have a lot of cancer in my family. I wear the wristband on there. And the idea of innovation and turning data and turning devices into action. I think that's the exciting part. And actually someone said it I don't know who tweeted it out, but I saw that Ursula retweeted it. And someone said, they don't even want to think about the future because there's too many people that haven't embraced the today and the change today. I actually think that to me is one of the most exciting parts. I think innovation is actually, we're switching the script now, and we're actually now simplifying things. So instead of before, when we had a data warehouse and we brought in all of this data because we thought for whatever reason we needed to know every click that every employee made across every device they ever existed. I think now we're going to shift to a new world where we're asking the right questions. We're looking at data to make actions, not data for data's sake, which ultimately makes data simpler than what it was 2 years ago. So even though we're getting more innovative and adding more devices, I think simplicity takes a flip around now. And all of a sudden, instead of you needing like a master's degree to set up a Raspberry Pi, you're going to be able to actually do something and do it very simple. I mean, Blab's a great example. Blab is a tool that's not doing anything crazy new. They just made it crazy simple for us to use. And this is innovation.
Well, it's funny because I actually think you're absolutely right as far as really not creating new things, but improving and reinventing things that really matter. Education, a big one. Healthcare. I'm actually involved with, in an advisory capacity, up in Charlottesville, Virginia, a company called InSpark Technologies. They're focused on using algorithms and actionable insight so that diabetics get forewarnings based on their previous blood sugar results. If you look at Sanofi Aventis and some of the other manufacturers that focus on things like diabetes, they've glorified the logbook that people write down their blood tests and eating and exercise into this electronic thing. This is something that takes that information and says, at these times during the day or night, you might have an issue. Let's change this. And then you work with your doctor, and then it's a collaborative effort between you, your doctor, your spouse, your caregiver, your kids, if they're the diabetics. That can happen for any situation. normal everyday kids that need to watch what they're doing, all the way to people focused on cancer and treating cancer better, not just trying to kill it and end up killing the person in the process.
No, that's a key right there. And, I see, actually, I love this comment, Fred. Fred put on the comment there, he said, remember, collaboration for competitive advantage existed for a long time, way before social media cloud solutions. New tech merely enhances these principles. Embrace the tech, but don't ignore the principles. I couldn't agree more. I think, unfortunately, it's existed for a long time. It was untouchable, pricey as hell. And really, when you think about it, before cloud and before social media, it wasn't real time. It wasn't allowing us to really embrace a lot of the things we are now. I mean, I think now when we look at this, I don't look at new technology and get excited about something that gives me a new gadget in my pocket. That doesn't get me excited. I get excited about something that is going to allow me to do something that I couldn't do before, or do something faster than I could do before, or give me, like for me, I moved to Virginia from Arizona. I had to call 13 doctors that would take my Jawbone data, because I like to upload my data. I don't have my Jawbone now because it's dead. But my Jawbone, because for me, I have, for ADHD, they want to know my sleeping patterns. And for me, before, it was like a book log every morning, and
Mm-hmm.
heaven forbid if I remembered it. Well, what if I was able to go to a doctor, which I was, and upload that data? Now they're actually making decisions on my body, not guessing, but they're actually having more real-time data. So for me, that not only allows that, but then I even signed a crap load of papers to allow them to take my data and strip my name out of it, strip the personal stuff out of it, and share that so they could collaborate doctor to doctor. And maybe my daughter, who will probably get prescribed, get diagnosed with ADHD, maybe whenever she's diagnosed, the data that they're getting off of me, which is, I don't need that data, is going to make them have a better decision and help solve something for her. To me, that's collaboration in an exciting economy.
Well, it's funny. I love Fred's quote, embrace the technology, don't ignore the principles, but I'd actually change it. We need, like you said, simplicity. Embrace the technology, don't ignore the people. That's the key.
It is. And I think the companies that are getting it right now are hiring and firing for culture fit, but they're also looking at it and saying, it's not the people that are wrong. Oftentimes, it was the skill set and the job and the bucket they were hiring. I can tell you, since I left my company, my full-time role, and have now gone into, a hybrid role myself, doing just under my own, the companies that are attracted are kind of coming at me. They love everything that happens outside the box and in what is in my parameters. Then they give me a box to sit in. And I'm like, don't you understand that's the root cause of what I don't believe in, that I would never allow for? And I think when companies flip that script and they say, the box is wrong that we're trying to hire for, let's hire somebody that can now enable us to do things. I mean, it's also about training some of these existing employees. They have the talent. One of my favorite stories was Dell. Dell went out of their way, did a really great job of implementing and adding a data scientist to every single department. Every department across Dell. I was there at I was speaking at one of their events when they made that announcement. And I thought that was genius. And so your finance department and your HR department and your product management team, all of them have their own data scientist. So now it's not about we have data, but nobody uses it. Or, it's like, hey, how do I look at these things and kind of flip the script? So I think it's a very interesting conversation for sure.
And the bigger thing too, not IBM Watson for sure, but not just them, is that data scientist is in every department now. But the big opportunity with technology comes when the data scientist capabilities, not all of them because they're extremely talented, knowledgeable people, but when those capabilities can reach every person to make better decisions.
That's a great way of putting it. And so there's a couple of things I saw out there on the Twitters that I wanted to bring in here that I thought were really good. Someone said, and so this is Crowded Head again, we're building citizen analysts from qualified self to business insights. Think about that. I mean, and I think that is something that is really, really exciting. And I think for me, I love, and Brett and I had a great discussion when I was actually in San Jose at the Pure Matter headquarters, and what the team at Pure Matter is doing. I'm a big fan of everyone that's over there, and they're thinking outside the box, and they're hiring, and they're working with companies, and they're taking influencer marketing and flipping it on its head. Ian, I think you and I both will be in Vegas, working with their teams at the end of this month. And I think it's interesting when people are looking even at influencers, and to me, live streaming is just live streaming. I'm not saying it's the be all end all, but I can tell you the amount of companies now that are opening their eyes and saying, wait, the greatest asset I have as a great company are my employees. And if I have a great story, how do I empower them? I can tell you SAP is looking at live streaming right now and is excited about it. And that excites me, because if SAP and IBM and these Dells and Samsung and these companies can embrace this change, which is drastic change. And these tools aren't even a year old. If they're willing to do that and be open-minded to it, they are the ones that are going to lead the future of digital and data disruption. And it's not going to only be just startups, because for a while there, it kind of felt like the only people you would convince to learn a new tool or a new app was the startup, was the mid-sized and small-sized business. Now we're seeing these big, giant dinosaur of companies now get that, do a little bit of a pivot, or maybe they get a couple great change agents inside, and are able to convince them, like, take a chance on me. What's the risk versus reward here? So I think that truly is an exciting part.
Well, and don't forget, all of those companies you mentioned, the big behemoths right now, they started as startups. They had to grow. They introduced, incredible technology to the world that got us to this point. But at the same time, if you're a technology, software, innovation company, how can you not embrace this to determine what's next? If you leave that to the startups, you can't possibly stay relevant.
And actually one of the things I'm typing here, so actually, I love the conversation. I believe it's happening between Ursula and Brett in the comments section. And we have an open seat. If someone wants to jump in, we'll stick around for a couple more minutes. But they were actually talking about the idea that if you had passion and you had drive, you could embrace and learn these new technologies. And I believe if you have passion and drive, you are not someone that complains that no one taught you something or your company didn't teach you something. You actually know it before the company realizes they need to know it, right? And I think, I say it all the time, and I'm actually writing a blog post about it right now, is how I'm a product of YouTube University, even though I went to a 4-year college, because everything I learned now, I was coding HTML today, or the last couple of days, I'm launching my new website, and I went to school for web design. That was my computer science, web design concentration. And it's funny because even the HTML I'm coding was not the HTML that I learned in college. And I learned it from a YouTube video. I learned it from now. And so I see. Oh, that was weird. We had like 3 people pop in, and then so Cheval's jumping in the hot seat. But I think that's kind of the exciting part. But how's it going, Cheval?
Doing good, Brian. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Wonderful, my friend. What say you?
Well, I definitely agree with what you guys saying here. I mean, like you mentioned SAP, IBM, and I'm going to add SEM Rush. They're embracing. They're allowing their employees to be the stars too. I mean, I'm going to show you an example. They like. One time when there was a problem here on Blab with the changes in algorithms, the director of social media, all the way from Russia, came in this Blab and chatted with the people here. So that alone showed me that they understand the importance of customer service and technology and what you guys are talking about. So basically, like the ones like the companies who will survive in this day and age are the ones who embrace transparency and interact with the customer service instead of trying to hide behind their brand message or whatever.
Well, it's funny. You bring up some excellent points. Bill Gates, people have different views on him. I still think he's done amazing things. He's helping the world. He said an unhappy customer is a company's greatest source of learning. And I think that's true.
Well, and I think that, and that includes, like, how do you listen? There's so much noise today, right, that exists. And cloud computing really, if we're going to put something out there, cloud computing actually enables noise because it really allows us to create faster and more real time. I mean, my joke about Facebook ever enabling live streaming would just mean a whole crap load more of bad content, because the amount of people on Facebook that already produce bad content and they don't have a camera where they can click a button and do it. Is one thing, but I also think of it as like, how do you filter, cut through the noise? How do you tell your story you have to embrace as many different omni-channel opportunities as possible. And why not embrace the omni-channels that you already are paying? Not the agency, the employees. And I think we have to shift even what is in the job description to include part of the storytelling. I was talking to an agency yesterday, and they asked me to do some strategic help. They're working with one of the companies, and they were asking me about their job description that they're hiring someone for. And I thought it was really interesting. They're hiring for this innovative, forward-thinking senior account manager. It's pretty awesome. But they had nowhere in the senior account manager's job role for an innovative agency. The agency works in like the financials and the healthcare industry. Nowhere in there did it say like leveraging social, connecting, using live streaming. Yet their entire job was tell the story to the customer, be the customer's touch point, be the face of it for all of our accounts. And so when I challenged him back with this, and this is someone that knows me only via social, like that's how we connected. He goes, oh my God, I think the last 5 people we hired, we didn't do that either. And this is an innovative agency that is like, to me, that was like, wow, we have to kind of figure out a way to kind of switch this idea that, and here, look at Fred said, let's see what this, I can't see the quote, but said, no tech only works if the training and professional development comes with it. Otherwise it's a null capacity. Fred, if you know my 3 T's, and I say them every week, the 3 T's matter because they're in order. You start with trust, it's then training, and then the tool. If you go the other order, a tool makes the people a tool, and that's the problem. It always is the problem. Fred, I couldn't agree more. I love that picture. I just saved it to my desktop. So, but yeah, I love that. So, Mr. Beard Envy, Ross, how's it going, my friend? Oh, we have no volume. We had no volume. Oh, thanks so much, Cheval, for jumping in, my friend.
You're welcome.
All right, take it easy.
It was great to talk to you. Oh, we lost Ross too.
All right. Oh, yeah, Ross is back now. All right. Thanks, Ursula. Thanks so much for jumping in. Thank you, SAP, for sponsoring this show. We're going to stick around for another minute or two, and then we'll jump off as well. But yeah, this has been an awesome Cloud Talk. Ian, thank you so much for jumping in, stepping in.
Thank you for having me.
Large, balding man shoes. But Ross, what say you? I know you're a big advocate and not shy individual when it comes to technology and collaboration.
The lesser shy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, good. The beard is fully here then on screen and just shouts out, what? My new Note 5. Just had to give it a little bit of a cameo. So.
Shouldn't that be in the other open seat?
Exactly. I agree. It is. I'm waiting for its beard to grow, and then we will be fully there. Yeah, you know what? It's funny how many things converge, right? I think when people start to get a broader view, like there's so many, and we can call it silo, but if we think about it not from a company standpoint, but from a category standpoint, right? I mean, marketing, and you've got technology and the C-suite, you've got startups, and you've got, right, what's happening with startups and enterprise companies. The difference is all of a sudden, going back to what you were saying earlier, is that these enterprise companies are starting to say, what are we going, like, all of a sudden, we still have to be relevant. Like it used to be, if you were big, you had it and you could crush the little guys and you didn't worry about them and you didn't care what they were doing. And all of a sudden they're going, oh, wait, you know what? We can be here and be big, but still be irrelevant. And then what happens? Then that's when it does start to hit the bottom line and we have to start thinking about it. So I think looking at what people are doing and just realizing that, even the projects that I'm working on, like I look at it and I say, I've got an emoji app that I'm working on, and like the Samsung, right, comes out and it's got some little things where the text lights up and then it'll pop up an emoji to match that. And at first I was thinking, oh my goodness, we've got some stuff that we're trying to do like that. And you're thinking, oh, they're big, they're going to, you have that moment where it's like Mr. Wonderful moment, what's going to stop the big guys from coming and crushing you like a cockroach? And then you realize that, you know what? I sat down with my partner and I was like, okay, what's different though, is that they're not listening. They're not going to be agile. They're not going to be able to say, hey, people want this, we're going to move with that. Hey, we're going to do a whole different set of things, because they get out and their innovation is like, it's like a forward effort. It's almost like entrepreneurs who are able to go out and start something, but they don't really finish strong. And it's like they throw it out there and say, cool, we're doing this. But they're not going to sit there and change it every second and hold its hand and make it even more awesome. They're just going to get on the field. And so I think that startups and the small businesses that are agile and stuff, I think they're figuring that out. And being agile is like, when you're talking about collaboration, all those tools, the tech doesn't matter. What it just lets you do is start talking. Can you imagine your body if your brain just wasn't talking to your hand? You're like, hey, stop doing that. It's just going over there. My eye's going this way. Like, no, our body, just like a business, it has to communicate. And that enables, if we can't communicate, if our hands are going different direction, our eyes are going different direction, you know what? Nothing else matters. What are we going to get done? We're going to get done zero unless we can get on the same page and move as a unit. And I think that's what it all comes down to. And that's where cloud becomes really strong.
Well, I think startup is a very symbolic term too, because you think of this beginning thing, where is it going to go? And I kind of think of a startup like starting up a car. Starting the car is just step one. It's where it takes you. And that's the goal. So I think, that's the entrepreneurial nature. And that's what enterprises have to continue to think. We've driven down the road, we've driven down the world, but how are we going to go to other places next?
Well, yeah, and how funny is it? This conversation is always about cloud computing. Cloud is the underlying one. I think the reason that this chat is always great, and we have CIOs that tell us the only time they even turn on their Twitter account is the 1 hour for this show. The reason SAP and IBM have sponsored it, it's very niche, right? It's very niche. But the interesting part about it is, there's a lot of these great leadership chats and a lot of great chats about HR and talent culture and T-Chat. Our friend, majority of this cloud talk and tech chat comes down to people, trust, and leadership. And I know Fred just said that down there too. And it's amazing. And I love it. I think that's exciting. I think when people look at a technology problem and only think technology, they're the problem. The person that is actually looking at that problem is the problem. That's been my joke for a while, is that when someone comes and asks a social media manager or social media expert, what tool should I be using for manage Twitter? If they answer with a tool, they are an idiot, because they need to know what your success looks like. What does your business look like? How many people do you have? What is your culture? What's the message you're trying to convey? What's the story you're trying to tell? And to me, when someone just goes, use Buffer, and I'm like, that's the root problem, not the problem there. But what's up, Fred? Thanks for jumping in. Fred, kudos, my friend. You've been dropping knowledge bombs.
Oh, Brian, I've always enjoyed your stuff, and whenever I have a chance. Yeah, I don't spend a lot of time on social media, but you and a few others, when you're on, I come and watch. Generally with new tech, especially when I'm advising companies, especially in the wargaming or red teaming exercises, one of the first things they do when they start talking about new tech, new capabilities, blah, 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 because they all want to embrace it. Okay, fine, embrace it. Ask yourself 8 basic Darwinian style questions about adaptability. You get new tech because it increases your adaptability. Everything else is secondary.
Right.
First, is it intelligent? Is it going to improve my context-appropriate behavior and decisions in the company, including collaborative work? Is it going to allow me to discover and exploit new advantages? Is it going to be resilient? Okay, will it recover from shock readily? Is it robust? Is it going to be effective across a wide range of conditions? And this is where the HR tech IT guys sometimes need a really good slap.
They do.
Okay. Is it going to be flexible? Is it able to reconfigure? Is it agile? Everyone talks about, I want to be agile. Agile is one subset of 8 things, right? So get off the agile bus here. Can it redirect swiftly? Is it going to enhance creativity? Okay. Yep. Is it going to generate novel and useful new concepts or solutions? Is it going to be responsive in terms of speed of recognition and action? And is it enduring? Can it resist prolonged strain? Now, if they can't answer those basic 8 questions, get off the bus.
Fred, I love that. Absolutely. That you just created. Like, I was sitting there thinking, wait, and I was joking in the chat about, wait, I'm resilient. Wait, I'm all these things. Am I this thing that you're talking about? Like, it's charades. But the funny thing is actually, if we go beyond what we're looking at as far as the technology or any of that, and we think about individuals from an HR standpoint, these are all great questions to ask about who your people are, because they need to be this to interface with the technology, to interface with the change, to interface with the leadership. So a lot of times we think only up at the top, like, can this tech do this? Well, what about my C-suite? Can they do that? What about the rest of the company? Does our culture do that? Because if you have any one of those pieces missing, the pieces are not likely to overpower through that whole organization and be all those things. They won't get to actually meet their full max benefit until the rest of the pieces come in line.
I usually tell CEO and CIO or any C-suite sort of client, if the CIO is your agent for technological change, you've picked the wrong guy.
I agree.
Okay.
It's funny.
CEO. Don't nominate change champions. Do not establish a CMO office or any of this other crap. You, as a CEO, have to be the agent and champion for change. If you delegate it, you are going to get, you're going to get very sporadic change. And if every piece in your organizational structure is not an organizational change or change management office, aside from the obvious sacred cows that every organization has, it is eventually going to change. These are issues of leadership.
I couldn't agree more.
It's not really about tech. I always go back to the 8 Darwinian points about adaptation that I mentioned. You're trying to build an adaptable system, and you're trying to make sure that your change is evolutionary versus being revolutionary.
Yes.
Because a lot of people go for these business transformations, especially in the IT world. We're into a business transformation. Transformations are usually revolutionary.
Right.
Historically, revolutions fail. They're usually very bloody as well.
Yes.
Okay? Yeah. Sure, you get some cool movies out of them and stuff like that, but historically, revolutions are not. So, and that when people have fear about change, which causes disunity and all the other emotions that go with that, it's because people try to do these fundamentally big changes spasmodically.
Yes.
Yes.
Point, fire, and change, right? Point, fire.
Oh yeah, every major body group is moving here, right? And people are having body heaves on the ground. Make change a normal process in your company, and you do it through collaboration, but it has to be leadership top down, refinement bottom up.
Nope.
Well, it's funny because the so-called big technology failures that we see half the time have very little to do with technology. It's more about what people didn't do to prepare.
Oh yeah, I mean, one of my biggest wargaming seminar moneymakers right now is on cyber defense wargaming. And the first thing I do is I don't invite any tech guys there. This is one we do for C-suites. And I said, you look at any of the big, fundamental body, gaping, chest-sucking wounds of cyber defense in the last 4 or 5 years. Nobody hacked into a system.
Nope.
Right.
Okay. It was either human security failures, or really bad decisions made by the C-suite in reaction to a human security failure.
72% of the Pentagon's cybersecurity issues between 1999 and 2009, 72% were insider threat, which means an employee or a person either maliciously or accidentally did something that leaked, made the opportunity happen. Yet we want to spend all of our money on the other side, yet not train our employees. Yet 72% of that point of failure was in our own building.
People don't make bad decisions. People make sometimes people make brilliant decisions based on piss poor information. Or untested assumptions. And that's usually what happens here.
Fred, you give me like the perfect flashback to so much fun working with the military and working with the people that got it, in the sense of, even some of the sentence, and I just love it because it's like, yes, we're going to drive change. We're going to do it from a leadership perspective, and we're going to understand this tool isn't what we care about. We care about what the people are going to be able to do with it. So I love this. Guys, I have to run. I have to jump on a call. It starts in 2 minutes.
Thanks for letting me jump on and rant for a bit, but I really enjoy your chats, Brian, and it's a pleasure to meet you, Ian and Ross.
It was a
pleasure. Great input, Fred. Great input.
Thank you, everybody. Everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you, Cloud Talk. Thank you, Kristen Cardos. Thank you, SAP. Cheers.
All right, see you.
Have a great day.